Hey, happy Sunday, everybody. Welcome to Logic Live. It's hot here in New York. I'm sure it's hot where just about everybody is today. This is going to be actually a very special day. I've just received two notifications, right, just as the show was starting, that have kind of changed the kind of vibe, the feel, the flow of the entire show today. The first is that Greg Paul Malone is with us. I see him in the chat. Hello, Greg Paul. And the second is that Randy McEntee will not be here today, which means we're going to have a flawless show technically. That's what always happens when no one's looking. I call it like Schrodinger's show, right? Fred Warren is here, which is great because he can be chiming in the chat and correcting all of Stephane's mistakes, which will be great. Not that there'll be mistakes, but they're going to be keeping each other in check. There's a balancing act, right, between these two. Very good. Hello, Merritt. Hello, Michael Landon. Hello, Gavin. Oh, Jeff Kyle, how are the levels? Good morning, John Ag, all the way down under. All right, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Logic Live number 89, Summer of Flame with Stephane Labrie. Stand by, Randy McEntee, wherever you are. This is for you. Hello, everybody. My name is Andy. Welcome to Logic Live. Let's get underway and start the slides. This episode of Logic Live is brought to you by AJA, together with Flame, since 2006. Randy and I want to welcome our newest sponsor to Logic Live, Hotspring, the future of VFX outsourcing. Hotspring connects you to great artists to get your projects done, making it easier than ever to access the best talent around the world. Check them out at www.thehotspring.com. Need tech support? Well, call Jack Horrocks. And by call, I mean email Jack at jack@flametech.com.au. He's there for all of your Flame networking storage and custom build needs. If you're in the market for any of Boris FX plugins, please use the Logic discount code and save yourself 15% on any of their products, standalone or subscription, when you use the code Logic-15 at checkout. Stop the presses, ladies and gentlemen. Alan Letary has joined the chat. So we're going to have an unofficial Alan Letary drinking game today. All right. I would like people to propose in the chat what they think Alan is going to ask. And anytime he does ask, we will drink. I have coffee right here, maybe laced with Bailey's. It is Sunday. And we're on Logic Live. All right. While you're checking things out, check out the Logic merch store. Look your best while you make your best. You can get that at logic.tv and click the merch button up top. I want to thank all of our patrons on Patreon. We could not do what we do here at Logic without your support. The list keeps growing. We're up to, drum roll. Oh, that's right. I control the drum roll button. 136 patrons on Patreon. I want to thank each and every one of them. Again, we could not do what we do here without your support. If you'd like to support what we're doing at Logic, get yourself some exclusive content like the show we do after the show, the Q&A with our guest, and some merch. You can go to patreon.com/LogicTV and support what we're doing for as little as $5 a month. Just want to remind everybody that Thursday, August 18th is the inaugural Detroit Flame user group at 6:30 p.m. at Flavor in Detroit. I want to congratulate the entire team there for putting that together. There's a great lineup of presenters about to happen there in Detroit. We have Fred Warren, Steve Zweig, Brooks Tomlinson. Finn Yeager is going to be in the house. That is not a typo, ladies and gentlemen. Javi Mendez from Synesys, and pizza and beer will be provided courtesy of our friends at Synesys. Rumor mill says it will be Detroit-style pizza. And I hope you all watched last Sunday's Render Dome. If you haven't, it's available on replay over on YouTube. It was an epic conform battle with Bernd Hildebrand against Brian Bailey. Bernd came out victorious at the end. Congratulations to him. That, of course, was held in the Boris FX arena where extraordinary artists do extraordinary things. But congratulations to Bernd Hildebrand for coming in victorious. He's the winner of Render Dome 3. He took home a Wacom Cintiq Pro 16, courtesy of our friends at Wacom. And Brian got himself a 12-month license of the entire Boris FX suite, courtesy of our friends at Boris FX. Congratulations, both of you. And a big announcement here at Logic Live. I want to introduce to you our two new hosts. Wait, let's give them one of these. That's right, my friends. Starting next week, we're going to have some additional faces here on Logic Live. I mean, you know them, you love them. It's Jeff Kyle and Amanda Elliott. Next week, Jeff is going to host Logic Live. He's going to have Bernd on, and they're going to have a recap of RenderDome 3. And on Sunday, August 21st, Amanda is going to host a Logic Live entitled Women in Flame. She's still lining up guests, but we're really looking forward to that. I'm just excited to have both of them join the team. I'm still going to be hosting Logic Lives, but this is a great opportunity to introduce some new voices, to introduce some new faces, and to, as I just saw Ralph put in the chat there, round out the A-team. So congratulations and welcome aboard to Amanda and Jeff. I know I can't wait to see what you guys produce and what you bring to the Logic Live team. Randy is not here, but if he was here, this would be his most excited. He would be most excited about this portion of the show where we show off the forum stats for 2022. And I got to say, we're up to 1,154 users. That's up 5 over the last show. We've crossed the million page view threshold, and it's only, let me look at my watch, the 24th of July, which is really, really amazing. We're up to 8.4 thousand posts. That's up 700 from the last show. And we added 11 more users on Discord. That's 400 users on Discord. And if you haven't already signed up for our Discord server, please do and join the conversation where we have live chat, screen sharing, and generally a whole lot of fun. Want to remind everybody about the new classes for Logic Academy that we released this year. There were 3 of them so far. The first one was Beauty Techniques in Flame that I put together, which covers topics like blemish removal, cleaning up blotchy areas, red eyes, eye bags, texture and color balancing, all under the umbrella of working as efficiently as possible. And then we had 2 from our friend Randy McEntee. One was everything you need to know about the machine learning time warp tool that was gifted to the community by Andrei Toloshny. Randy goes over how to install it on Mac and Windows, and all the kind of gotchas you might, Mac and Windows. Oh, sorry. I'm definitely going to hear from Stephane when he joins in about that, about Mac and Linux, and all the gotchas along the way that you might have depending on which combination of hardware and Linux you're running. Randy also did one called Setting Up PyBox. PyBox is an amazing tool in Flame to integrate your Flame with other applications in your pipeline. Randy shows how to get Flame and Nuke working together. And those join Connected Conform, the image node, Intro to NDI, and 8-Minute Aces, all available for free at logic.tv or on our YouTube channel. We want to thank our friends at Autodesk for sponsoring Logic Academy. Speaking of our friends at Autodesk, I want to give a shout out to Grant Kay. He has a couple new installments of the Flame Learning Channel to coincide with the release of 2023.1. There are 2 videos. There's updates to the animation editor and then how to use Python for browsing and messaging improvements. You can check both of those out on the Flame Learning Channel at youtube.com/flamehowtos. And speaking of Flame, like I said, 2023.1 is out. If you don't have it yet, hurry up and get it now. And that, I think, does it for the slideshow. All right, my friends, we have a great show for you today. Logic Live number 89. It's the Summer of Flame, and the Summer of Flame is continuing. I'm very, very happy to welcome back to the show my guest, the lovely and talented, always funny, Stephane Labrie. Hello, Stephane. How you doing, man?
Find yourself. Thank you very much for sharing with me this great Sunday. I see a lot of great people on the attendee list. I mean, I see Fred is there, Alan's there, Greg Paul, and I also see one of my daughter, Marika, is there. So please be good with her father. We don't want to make her cry.
Right? Oh, yes, I see her there. She says, hello, Papa. Oh, that's sweet.
Absolutely.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, that's sweet. I mean, we'll go through, update 1. I'll give you information about this release. And then, we'll look at some examples after that of things we can do with this update.
Wonderful. And, of course, if anybody has any questions for Stephane, please put them in the chat.
Yeah,
and I'll make sure that he sees them. All right, my friend. I'm going to hand you over the reins of the screen there. And let's get underway with what's new in this new release.
Thank you. You should be able to see my title slide, Update 1, right? So, Update 1, so the first update of 2023. And very often every year, medium to large size studios always wait for the first update to upgrade, right? So the spring release, the major release, they look at the feature, they train themselves. And then summertime, when it's after the big summer blockbuster deliverables, they have some time to update. So this is a small update, which will be very easy to get for most users who had a look at 2023 release. So let's start with the components. Operating system wise, CentOS 7.6, Rocky Linux 8.5. same as a previously released version, and macOS from 10.15.4 and plus to macOS 12, 11 and 12. So make sure if you run macOS 10.15 that you have the fourth update, because Flame won't install if you have 10.15.3, 2, or 1, right? So it's there are components we need. Yeah, absolutely, because you don't want to back up your system and then discover that you need to upgrade the components, the operating system to upgrade. If you haven't done so, so many of you have had a look at Rocky Linux, which we introduced last spring, I'm sorry. So if you are still on CentOS 7.6, I would recommend you to start thinking about your transition to Rocky Linux 8.5, since we will support 7.6 for multiple years. So start about the backups and moving to this most recent operating system, since there are security updates and all these things that you would like to have with this operating system. There's a DKU update, so DKU 17.1, which again is also super small. There's a AGA driver, which we'll have a look a bit later, and security updates, so patches. So it uses the same graphic driver as the spring release. So again, it will be a very easy deployment on your facility for update 1. Flame on the cloud is the first topic I'm going to talk to you about today. So as you remember, we had a 2023 release of Flame on the cloud with AWS. So update 1 adds small things, but big things for some studios, like the support of Rocky Linux 8.5 on AWS. So like I explained to you last May, we had some technology dependencies which prevented us to move to Rocky Linux 8.5 for the deployment on the cloud. So these have been resolved. So that means you can deploy Rocky and Flame update 1 on the cloud. We also created a base Amazon machine image, which is kind of contains the operating system and the DKU. So that means you can start from this AMI located on our system requirement page. And that means you're going to be able to skip some pages in the installation, because the AMI takes care of the OS and the driver. So follow the link on the screen and you're going to be able to see this page, the system requirements, and also the download page for the AMI, which again will make your deployment easy and fun and faster, of course. Again, talking about technology vendor we work with, so we use either Teradici or AWS Nice DCV for the remote display. So these technology also have been updated to support Rocky Linux 8.5 server. So as you can see on the screen, if you are used to the Teradici CAS, which is a cloud access software, it has been renamed HP Anywhere. And that has been released at the beginning of July. So this is the merged product, which contained Teradici and also ZBoost, the remote display capabilities you had with HP workstations. So this is a new line of product. So, and same thing for Nice DCV, they have released their support at the beginning of July. So if you want to know more about Teradici HP Anywhere, so just follow this link. You'll get all the information you want to know about. And these are the download location for the various client for Windows, Linux, and Mac OS, and also mobile if you want to use your mobile device to get to the cloud. And these are the pages for Nice DCV with all the new features and also the download locations. It's always handy to have them, so use the QR link to be able to access these. We have also updated the FAQ and the reference implementation document with all the things we've done for update 1. So again, look at these pages if you have any question about Flame on the cloud and how to deploy it easily with our, I think, 80 pages documentation. It's easy and fun. It's 80 pages of great information. So if you want to know more about the cloud, this is what you are looking for. Configuration. There were some discussion on the area and also on the Logik forums. I think I need to say Logik forums multiple times, right, Andy? I need to remind people
as
to
many
visit
times as
as many
possible.
times.
That would
Yes.
be great. Yes.
So on Logik forums, there were conversations. Yes, absolutely.
Every
There's a queue, in fact.
Yes.
And I should get $5 on my PayPal. Yes, thank you very much. I got it. So last summer. Update 2, in fact, if I'm not mistaken, we added the support for the A5000 card, so the Ampere family from NVIDIA. So A5000 at that time was the best bang for bucks for cost and cost performance, right? So, but many people were asking us to have a look at qualifying the A6000, which is similar to the A5000, except the amount of graphic memory. So I know many of you, even before we announced in update 1 that the card was qualified, had this card on their system, and they had no issues because that's the same family of product, right, except the memory. But some sites are more sensitive and prefer to have that to be fully qualified. So we've done that. So it's on our system requirement page. So DL config check has been updated. So that means you can safely play with Flame and the A6000 card, which is a great card with the 48 gig of VRAM. So that means you can do a lot of that. But 48 gig of VRAM before update 1 was not a big deal, because some of you might remember that we had a limitation related to the amount of VRAM and the RAM that you had on your workstation, because we do, a shadow memory. We have to manage the memory for the application in the operating system. So you were kind of limited. You needed 3 times the amount of RAM for the VRAM you had with your graphic card. So that limitation is gone. This is something that if you work with your Linux or Mac Intel configuration, can take advantage of. You don't see Mac the Mac M1 on this page, because when we started supporting the M1 last December with the 2022 the 3.1 update, we had made the work to make sure we were able to address the memory of the RAM and the VRAM. So if you are on M, there's no problem at all. But for Linux configurations and Mac Intel, update 1 is the release you need to be able to maximize your graphic card's capabilities. That slide is not, in fact, new in update 1. So there was multiple thread on the area and also on the Logik forums about the sync option. Thank you. The queue, we can make it tighter, Andy. So I wanted to remind you that there's something you need to do if you haven't updated to 2023 yet. So when you're going to install the software, and if you have the previously released, like 2022, so what we do, we upgrade your init.config file with all the timings you had defined. So these will translate automatically. But we have removed, in fact, the support for the free sync timing inside the setup application and the init.config. So they will reappear, but you won't be able to see your timings. So that means when you're going to start the software, well, you're going to see this message if you don't have a SyncGen, and you're going to see a dialog saying, well, do you want to use, a free run, which we don't want to do every time you start the software, because, you don't have a SyncGen. So to fix that is quite easy. So you go into the setup application. So as you can see, these are the legacy free, which you won't see anymore when you do a clean install of 2023. So you select your non-free timing that you want to work with. You select them in the setup, and then you click on the sync source field, which becomes a drop-down. Right, and from there you're going to be able to select free timing. So then you do that for all the timing. You only do it once, because the next time you will upgrade the software, then all these will be set to free sync. So you save that, you start Flame, and you're going to be able to see all the wonderful timing for your multiple workflows you have to do in Flame family. So yes, one thing that you have to do once, and then you can forget about that, because more and more people are working from home or remotely, so they don't have SyncGen. But we still have the studio people who have their equipment. So as you might know, we even have people still doing VTR IO in some countries, right? That's why we didn't want to break their workflows. But for people working from home, you just have to modify the setup application, and you're going to be super happy about that. As you might remember, we've added the ability to define your storage within the application. So there's a volume creation tab when you create a project. So we've added, in fact, the ability to set the state of the shared option. So when you work with multiple projects, you can define to share or duplicate the cache of your effects between projects. So some people might prefer to not share them and then manage them per project. So this is something now you can enable from within either this page when we create a volume, or from Flame Setup. You can open Flame Setup, you go on your media storage, and again, you click on the cell, and you have the option to set if you want shared option to be enabled or disabled. So super simple thing that you can do. After defining your volume, so you will probably, when you create a project, define your cache and render. And many people were confused, in fact, about the naming and what type of footage or media format we were creating when we were rendering. So we kind of eased that in update 1. So as you can see on the screen, we changed the user interface. So we've changed the preset for the preferred format to really highlight the format you will write based on integer or floating point content. So in previous releases, uncompress, you had 2 options, in fact, that many people were using for uncompressed workflows. Was the uncompressed raw and the uncompressed. So the uncompressed raw, in fact, is creating DPX files for any integer formats like 10, 8, 10, and 12 bit. And when working with floating point content, well, we are writing raw data to your storage, right? But that was not clear for many users. If you were to use the uncompressed option, well, we were still writing DPX for integer, but we were writing PIS EXR for your floating point constant. So at least this information in the user interface will help you understand what you are writing to your file system for your storage, for cache, proxy media, and renders. So that should help understanding what's happening behind the application. Of course, we revisited the other presets for compressed intermediates, like we call them. So the DNX HD, DNX HR, and ProRes also have the same topology for RAW and AXR PIS with the user interface telling you about what's going to happen when you're going to write your cache. That's great. So you created the volume, you created how you want the media to be rendered, to be created. So, and there's a great tool that not everybody is aware of in the preferences, which is the test disk tool, which help you validate the speed of your storage when you write content to it. So mainly for rendering and playback purposes. So this is located in preferences. And we also added a content-based test disk, which I'm going to show you in a minute. But before, let's have a look at what we've done in preferences. So in previous releases, the tool was kind of simple. It was only testing for the full resolution. And in this update, you have access to either full res or proxy. You can test for read and write. You can also define the amount of passes for writing and the amount of frame. And you can also define different write option and read option when you test your storage. So some of you who might have support calls with our support team about the playback performance might have seen this user interface because this interface was used in debug mode. So you had to press, a special Jedi key and flame to be able to see that. But now it's enabled by default, so you can test that if you have some issues with playback on your workstation. So that test, in fact, the project property. So if you say I have a UHD project at 12-bit, well, that will do some read and write tests at that resolution. But sometimes you don't want to do that, right? You want to test the performance of your soft import. So you have content that you bring in the application, and it might, depending on the format, play or not play correctly. So you want to see what's going on. What is the problem? So if you right-click on any content on your workspace, you're going to be able to see in the media section the test disk. So in my example right now on the screen, I have a Quicktime file, which is on either on my storage or any my file system I have on my system. And when I run the test disk, well, we're gonna test for this specific file, right? And then we're going to give you statistics about the number of frames per second we can use from this format, the amount of time we spend for every frame. So this SPF stands for it's a per frame the diagnostics, and then you can get the data rate of the storage required to read this file. So if you have R3D files going through GPU debayering with all the bell and whistle of the format, so that will in fact emulate this reading, and you're going to get information about the rate of this thing. One thing to have to keep in mind is that functionality, the test disk for the content works for source content and also sequences. But if you have a sequence, you need to make sure that all the timeline effects are rendered, because what the tool is for is to know about the test disk. So if you get some unrendered effects or transitions, well, that will make the result of the test wrong, because it would go through the GPU pipeline, so then you would not know. So in this case, just to prevent that thing, the option is not available if you have unrendered content on your sequences. So make sure to render everything, and then the option will reappear when you're going to right click on it.
It's a great new addition to the application.
Well, very often we need to diagnose, and we ask question, how come it doesn't play as it should? And sometimes you don't know that a file might be located on a very slow file system, right? So that way, with this analytic, you're going to see it. What you can get from your either SSD drive, your fast storage, or even your system disk. Sometimes you might have your clip. So you don't want to render, in user temp, but sometimes by mistake you might do it, and then that will tell you the data rate you get.
No, it's great, and especially for like an individual operator like myself, who will
Absolutely.
end up launching like I know I shouldn't say this word, but black magic disk speed test,
No, no.
application,
In fact,
and
this is a
and
great tool to have on your system. But what we've done, in fact, is it's adding on top because it does things from within the application, which something that you can do with the Blackmagic tool, which tests, in fact, the storage for a given format, which is good. I mean,
Mhm.
the two together should be on your system at the end of the
Yeah.
day.
But this certainly saves me from having to bounce in and out of Flame and trying to figure
Yes.
out. It's a great addition.
Absolutely. Backburner. So if you install the Flame on Mac or Linux, you're gonna get Backburner installed. So it's taking care of all your background operation. If you have a burn farm, so you need to make sure to update, in fact, the manager to have the right version because sometimes we do fixes and sometimes we add capabilities to the Backburner manager. So make sure to either download it from the App Store, so you can download the Mac OS and Linux. So that contains the full, in fact, Backburner tools, the manager, and also the monitor. So that means you can install that on your station, which don't have the Flame family products, which might most of the time when you have a manager, you don't have Flame installed on that. But if you do, well, it's already installed with the application installation. So it's on the App Store of Autodesk. You can get it. So we've done in update one many modification to the documentation for remote administration. We can also print the recommended version because if you work in an environment with multiple version of the manager and application, so then we give you what is best, especially for the command job, which is a great tool in Backburner, enabling you to, in fact, do any command line tool. So I know people, and if you talk to Alan at his facility, he use Backburner to do many things like deploying software and also render other products renders right on the farm. So you can do that with Backburner. Speed wise. Common job tool speed has been increased and also the deletion. So when you have a lot of tasks in a job, so it's faster than ever to delete all these tasks. And we also added to the Backburner monitor the ability to press escape to close the multiple windows you have when you are looking at the details of all the tasks you have to manage within Backburner. Some bug fixing, which I'm not going to go through because it's very geeky things. But yes, have a look at the documentation for more details about the
This is a
various.
this is a very geeky audience. I just want to throw that out there, and that's a
Okay,
compliment.
so then
Yes.
we can talk if you want about
Yeah.
UUID, which is a great thing. So accessing over VPN was showing some issues. So these have been resolved. Some sites have been because more and more we work remotely. So VPN access, when you look at the queue, was showing some issues. Host name with numerical number was also showing issues. So I mean, all these fixes made their way in update one. And if you find any issues, well, of course, as usual, let our support team knows about them so we can fix them. Service monitor, something that many of you use to see the status of the various services we use with our product. Some time ago, we've added the diagnostics tab, which is great because it looks across all the log files and is able to detect the various issues related to error, to network port, the status of the various services. And that helps us a lot when you have an issue. So that means you can run diagnostic. You can also save or even copy to the clipboards. That means when you have an issue, well, you can easily copy paste the output of the following test. We've added 3 new checks, so store and wire IP addresses to ensure that in your facility all the configuration is good. Because sometimes if you cannot wire between two systems, it might be because either of the IP address or the port. So that could be a challenge. Installation sanity check, which checks to ensure that everything has been installed correctly. But the last one is really something that many Mac users have seen, especially with Mac OS 12, where security sometimes require permission for the application, and that happens very often that you need to add Flame in the full disk access if you work with a removable storage. So you have your nice USB drive, which is a multi-terabyte. You deplug it, you replug it, and then there's a new UID, and then Flame cannot have access because it's a new connection. So then you start Flame, there's no storage, you panic because you are in delivery mode. Right, that happens. So the diagnostic at least will tell you, well, go see this preference and fix it there, and then give the permission to Flame to have access to the storage. So again, small things,
That's great. No,
but
and
which
this is
should
good
be
because
easy.
this will check my mental state before I go to install another version of Flame, which is excellent because I want
Absolutely,
it to
you
tell
want to
me if
avoid
I'm in
it.
the right frame of mind to do this, because
Yes, you
otherwise I'm
are.
going to end up calling Alan and and
Yeah, absolutely.
he's
But
saved me
sometimes
many times.
it's at 3 a.m. At night, right? So I mean, it could
Yeah, but it's
be
only midnight there, so then I kind of lean on that.
yes, yes, 24/7 support. It's good. On the user interface side, many of you are upgrading either your MacBook Pro laptop and also monitoring in your studios to support HDR displays. So you are now able to set HDR user interface on the main and on the extended display, right? So you can do that from the setup application. So that's great because very often you have a mix of SDR, HDR in your studio. So that means you can handle these cases. So that's for the graphical user interface, right? It's not for the broadcast out, which should be managed by your HDMI TV set or your SDI. AVIO, well, I talked to you in DKU17 about the AGA driver. So if you install, well, you will install DKU17, so that way you're going to be able to have access to the latest driver from AGA. And then there's a firmware update, which is also available on the DKU. So flash your Kona 4 and Kona 5, and then you're going to get access to the latest fixes. The good news here is upgrading to the DKU 17.1 won't break your previous release of Flame. So that means if you have Flame 2022, it will work, no problem at all. If you still use the old card from AGA, so the IO 4K and the IO XT, IO 4K, and not to be confused with IO XT for IO 4K Plus, which is a different card, but the IO 4K and XT have been end of life, right? So you cannot buy them, and the drivers don't support these cards anymore. So you're going to be stuck in 1603 drivers. So I think it's a good idea either to not install on your Mac the AGA driver, or in fact start looking at your various options like the TTAP Pro from AGA, which is a nice small form factor card for preview for our application. So if you're a Mac, well, just follow the link on this slide and you're going to be able to download 16.2.2 from AGA support website. Blackmagic Design also, in fact, updated desktop video some time ago. So again, small bug fixing, also compatible with our previously released version. Linux and Mac users, so there's no DKU for Blackmagic, so you have to download that from their website. But be careful, because you will see on the support website of Blackmagic a 12.4 version. And we are testing these things, but we have seen that Flame won't start if you update to desktop video 12.4 on Linux. On Mac, it seems to be good, but I would recommend you, if you don't need the support for the hardware that they are supporting in 12.4, to stick with 12.3. In fact, all this information is located on our system requirements. So this is where you need to get your information when you build a system. So just to avoid issues, make sure that you are running with the components we have validated. So again, you have a QR code on the page, and you can visit Blackmagic Design website for more information about their latest and greatest release of desktop video. Something we talked about some time ago, if you are doing Stereo 3D VTR capture and playout, so 2023 Update 1 remove, in fact, the capabilities to do that. So don't cry. I know it was super useful in 2009, but VTR capture, like we said earlier, is still supported, right? But we're gonna give less and less love to this part of the software, because file-based workflow is the way to go these days. So, but be assured that if you are doing finishing and visual effects on Stereo 3D projects, well, you're gonna be able to still do preview with the single and dual link. So these capabilities won't disappear, but it's only the VTR aspect of Stereo 3D that has been deprecated and removed from the application. Over the time,
somebody out there has like a virtualization of like a Digibeta deck or a D5 or something, and they're going to insist that you support that, so that when they go to file export to export a QuickTime, it actually like rewind, like you can see the reels, like the ballistics go and play down. Yeah, I'll just tell them to log a support call.
That might happen, right? But we need to move on, right? I mean, we bring new technologies. We need to, and nothing prevents you to stick with the old release, right? I mean, if you use 2023, you still have the capabilities. So if you have a project, well, you could go back to this version, since the operating system, the drivers are the same. So then you can stick with multiple versions on your system. But yeah, I mean, workflow needs to evolve. So we have no choice to stop supporting these things and look at various technology like NDI and all these things that we added to the product in the past.
Stephane Labrie, ladies and gentlemen, taking every like ridiculous comment of mine seriously and rolling with it, and continuing to push the product forward. So thank you very much.
My pleasure. So,
I
of course,
return you to your regularly scheduled
no,
demonstration.
that's fine. In fact, I'm not going to go there today, but very often, technology partner like AGA have, in fact, capabilities that you could customize on your own, right? And they've added Python scripting, AGA, some time ago. So one could, in fact, be able to manipulate, the driver and do things with, let's say, a QuickTime file if you really want to do these capture and play out capabilities, right, from a file. Right, so you could do that. I would invite you to probably move on and not do these things or use previously released version. But yeah, there are things you could do outside the product to enable such workflows.
Noted.
Import and export also has seen some updates in this release. So Red SDK has been updated with some bug fixing. So look at the QR code on the page if you want to know more. Nothing, that affects our software, but it's good to be using the latest and greatest technology from these vendors. So then you can make sure that if you have a problem, well, they can easily support us or you. Same thing on the Blackmagic design side for the Blackmagic RAW. They've added new camera support from their recorder, so that means we needed to update the SDK. They have a 2.5 version that has been released, I think, the day we release our gold release for update 1. So that will come in an upcoming update, which support their new camera, their new 6K camera. With great capabilities, and they also have a 2.6 in beta right now. So later in the year, you'll see more updates for Blackmagic RAW in our products. I think the biggest, the more interesting SDK update in this release is really OpenXR. So OpenXR 3, in fact, was, since the beginning of this project, I think 1.5 years ago, which is managed by the Academy Software Foundation, was about performance, was about the speed of writing and reading file. And update 1 shipped with SDK 3.1.5, which is the latest release in April, and will, in some scenarios, dramatically improve the speed of reading and writing. So in our software, that means importing media, reading media, and also caching media and rendering when you render your intermediates. The great thing is the files that will be created with this version are compatible with previously released version of application using the legacy SDK. So you don't have to update all the technology in your studio to take advantage of that, because it's only the nuts and bolts of the reading and writing which has been updated. So if you want to know more about the SDK, visit the link on the screen and you're going to be able to know more about what they've done. But I have some graphics, in fact, to show you what it means. So the yellow bar is Legacy SDK 2.5.7, which is part of Flame Family 2023, and Update 1 uses 3.1.5. So as you can see, especially for zip scanline and multi-scanline, I mean, it's kind of twice the speed to encode, which is good. I mean, you don't want to wait after these export at the end of a project or even publishing for your VFX crowd. So that's a good speed improvement, because we all like speed. We all like to go back at home before midnight, and exporting sometimes happens at the end of the day. So that will be faster and better. There were many threads on Logik forums about I think we need to work these things out for the.
I need a physical button. I need to know ahead of time
fine.
so I can program a physical button. But that's my issue. Thank God Jeff's taking over next week.
That's fine. Ahead of time would just remove, in fact, the last minute and the velocity of the thing. Anyways, so many conversation about metadata. So if you work with the color spaces in the application, we are now writing the chromaticity metadata inside the OpenXR file, so which are part of ACE's workflows. And in the context of the write file node, if you work with uncompressed, if you render in uncompressed, you can set. Well, automatically, the ACES image container flag is now set because it requires no compression. So this is in the context where you encode OpenXR for archiving purposes, like not archiving in frame, but the archiving of your project for your assets. So that sets the with, of course, the color space, the ACES color spaces, that sets the right metadata. And somebody else, another application or pipeline, can see this data in the OpenXR file. So again, you can have a look at the quick link on the page to see what all these means. Again, some fixes for QuickTime. We've seen in the last 6 months, very strange files coming to our product. So we've seen content with wrong start time code and duration. We didn't get how come they were so badly encoded. So, and sadly, the QuickTime files we got, we don't know from which application or even service they have been created with. So we don't know who to tell you, guys, you are doing it wrong. So we made some fixes in update ones. We even seen files with incompatible file header. So the first case with wrong time code and duration, well, you can still import the file and see the file in Media Hub, but incompatible file means you're going to see a kind of gray slate, meaning I cannot decode the media files. Some were showing text attribute in the file header, like people were writing their novels there. I don't know why. And we even have seen edit list issues, edit list being a QuickTime, an old QuickTime capabilities where you can have multiple segments, defined in a QuickTime like, sequence, which were coming from creative editorial. So which you would not expect. You would expect for VFX reference, content with burn-in time code, which is very simple to read in our products. So we fixed these. Some of you might remember that in update 2 last year of 2022, update 2, we made the faster browsing for MXF files. So doing long form conform with MXF was easier and better with update 2. We've done the same thing here with QuickTime. So we've seen that many cases that field recorder or cameras were writing large header or footer of a file, which was making Media Hub slower to browse. So we have some use case example in the lab where we have hundreds of files which take more than a minute and a half to browse. Well, with update 1, it takes 3 seconds. So imagine if you have to conform these, your big project. So that's going to mean more time, in fact, to conform instead and work with the great capabilities in the product instead of waiting after Media Hub to refresh itself. And the thing is also, since it's slow to browse, well, when we access the file, when it's inside the sequence, you might have felt some slowdown, right? So that these have been fixed too. So be aware of that. And if you see some issues browsing files, well, please let us know. Please make sure we can have access to your files and open support calls because everybody needs to be able to browse quickly the files in Media Hub to be able to start projects in our products. Something I don't know if Chris Caston is on the chat today, but he requested some time ago the support for the color space metadata in Alexa Mini LF in ProRes format. So that was not there. It was a mistake because, as you would imagine, we should have received a communication from Ari, but then the COVID things and all. I mean, there were some confusion in the past, which we have fixed in update 1. So now you're going to be able to browse these files and get the right log-C tagging in Media Hub. You might have seen that last month, Ari presented the Alexa 35, a brand new camera, new sensor. The camera has been released, and you will probably receive these files for your project. So be aware that update 1 does not support these files. In fact, if you have raw files, you really need a new SDK, so SDK 7 for Ari RAW. And if you receive a ProRes, well, Flame will read the ProRes, but of course the color space will be wrong because there's a new color space. Something we'll talk about in a near future. So if you have any need in the short term, you can get back to me and I can explain you how you can work with these files. But since the camera are quite new, it might take some times before you get these files, so that might not be an issue. But if some of your production company start testing their workflow with these files, that might be an issue in your workflows. Poster frame, and this is a capability that was part of a legacy release of our product, which disappeared because we found some issues. So, and of course, there was a thread on Logik forums, right, about that. So it's our beloved friend Randy, in fact, discovered that this thing has disappeared. Yes, that's true. It disappeared for a very good reason, because the data was wrong, and there's nothing worse than wrong data. So we prefer to kind of turn it off until we add a fix. So that has been put back in update 1. So now when you go in file sequence, you have access to a JPEG preset, which in fact allows you to enable, disable, or set the use frame if you want. And then if you have multiple sequence you want to publish, let's say to YouTube, well, you can also at the same time create your thumbnails for your uploads, which is something that nobody likes to do. But with this capability, it's easy to do very, very fast. And then you can upload your content to your favorite media streaming platform. some fixes for media export in MXF. So there were some issues that we got from support for HDR encoding, and full range capabilities have been set to some of these codecs for some of the AVC intro presets. If you use HDCam HD, so it's more in the broadcast world, right, where they master HDCam HD or 422 in MXF. So we got, again, support calls about the version of the encoder, and it seems that some QC system expect to get version 2 of the encoders, which is strange, but in fact, we use version 1. It's a simple, straightforward metadata that doesn't change the file. But what we've done in update 1, just to avoid breaking the workflow for everybody else who is getting good result from QC, so we have added ways to set the encoder version into the encoding profile files. So look at the West New to get more details about that. So it was mainly Asian market who had this request. I never heard that from the US market or European market. So, but if you get QC returns, note that you can change this encoding within the application. Last but not least, Python API. So I will do, yes, this is in fact, yeah, the wrong draw. So I know many of you are waiting eagerly at every time we present the new release. What are the magic added to Python? And if Fred, in fact, was presenting today, he would be super happy to present this section. But I will do a Fred of myself and do it today. And hopefully he will correct me in the chat or say, Stephane, you got it right, which is hopefully what I'm going to get at the end. So Python API, we've added many capabilities in this update. So we've added capabilities to display message and dialogue in standard widgets. So file browser is also something we tackle on. I'm going to go quick because I'm going to show you most of them in the application. So Media Hub, you have access to the resizing control. You will see what it means in a minute. You can reset the color entries for media panel, which is sometimes cool to do because sometimes you define a color, but you want to get back to the original colors. So we fix that, and the ability to multiple import content to the workspace have been added to Flame import capabilities, creating look nodes and defining parameters, and playing with timeline transition, segment color, and containing of segments have been added. If you haven't played yet with Python, I think you should. Even if you're not a programmer, there are many things you can do easily. Like in some aspect, you can create very complex workflow with Python. But for artists, sometimes you can see Python as being a way to create simple macro. So repetitive operation you don't want to do manually. So, and I'm going to show you some examples. So this is what yourself, Andy, and Fred went through in 2020. So I've put a link because this is a great explainer, a great introduction to Python. Keep in mind that this video recorded in 2020 was using the 2021 release, and then later we updated our infrastructure to Python 3. So there are differences between Python 2 and Python 3. So some of your script or some of the script presented by Fred in the event will probably not work. So that's why you need to do some homework and understand the differences between Python 2 and Python 3. So I've put you a link. There are many resources on the internet about these things, but really at the end of the day, this is a list of the things, and especially the print function, which is mostly used in many scripts we create. So if you have the Python 2 way to use print and Python 3, that will create an error message, and this will be super frustrating if you don't know how come that thing doesn't work. So let me move in fact to Flame, and I'm going to show you some of the capabilities we've added in the update. So let me do that. Let me share my screen, Flame. Yes, this is it. Okay, you should be able to see my screen.
We're back.
You do, very good. So let's start, and I'm going to show you multiple examples. If you have an iPhone, and I think you can do that with Android too, if you take a picture of this with the latest version or the latest phone, I think iPhone 12 and up, you can take a picture and do character recognition. So that means you can copy paste this code, which is good. I will probably send that to a thread on Logik, also on Logik forum, so you can have access to this example. The documentation, of course, of Flame enables you to have access to that technology. So first thing is the message console. So here on the bottom left side of the interface, we print multiple messages, right? So when we save, when we do anything. So many users, when creating scripts, want to be able to interact with users and provide information. So the message console allow you, in fact, to print multiple type of messages. So the message show in console, you can have a message, you can define the type of message, information, error, or warning, and you can define the time in seconds. So as you can see on this part of the interface, we have a message, which is not blocking, of course. That means I can continue working in the application. This is an example of an error message with an icon that tells you, hey, what are you doing? Sometimes you need to warn your user to make sure what they do is not the right thing. So you have also this user interface with the icon. Of course, all these messages are part of this console. So then you can see what you printed to your user. So this is great when you want to communicate with your end user when you write a script. I'll show you an example, because yes, you can print messages, but something else you can do is also derive from other modules. So here I'm using the date and time module in Python, which comes standard, and I'm just creating a message which is in fact taking the actual time and date and creating a string with the current time and date. And then instead of looking at my watch or my phone, I can print that into the user interface, which, you can create that into a right-click action in Flame with the Python API. So again, small things that you can do, but it's good to be able to interact with end users when you write the script. It creates a better interactivity with your users. Many of you ventured to PySide, in fact, to be able to, again, interact with end users. So here I have an example using PySide to create a dialogue so we can talk to the end users. So here I have a nice dialogue that warns the user about something, but the same thing can be done like I've shown for warning or error or information. So then you can have multiple buttons. But as you can see, this user interface is not really similar to the Flame user interface, so it's less integrated. That's why, let me close this thing. That's why in update 1, we came up with the native dialogue. So the ability to create dialogues, we use the user interface of Flame. So if I were to run, in fact, this script, here I'm going to show you the dialogue. So here I have a message. I can define the title, the message, of course. I can define the type of dialogue, so questions, information, or warning. And based on the answer that the user will select, right, I can also have other dialogues. I can create a flow of dialogues and take decision and feed, in fact, variables. So I can have a positive answer, yes. And if I was to run it, I can also have a negative answer and have another type of comment. So again, when you create a Python script in the application, it could be good to have your users follow a flow and have them to define what they want to do with the functionality you've added to your script. So again, straightforward, super easy and fun to use with the Python API.
This is great because just in time for the 30th anniversary of the release of Jurassic Park, we can recreate the user interface of like Dennis going right? It'll be perfect.
And you should.
Mike Faglianti, if you're listening to this, the clock is ticking.
And yes, this is a Unix system. A famous quote from Jurassic Park.
It's a Unix system.
It's a Unix system. Another thing that many people have done using PySide is to pop a file browser, so that way user can go and select files and create content, import them using the Flame import capabilities to the destination. Here is a real. So, but again, this nice file browser is cool, but not integrated to the user interface. So it's a different Flame workflow. So update 1 adds the ability to use the native browser in Flame. So you can define, again, a title, you can define the extension, because sometimes it's good to be able to filter out some files or just say, well, I only want to show a MOV file. You can set the default path, and you can enable or disable the multi-selection and the resolution widget, which we're going to have a look right now. So I'm just going to move my window away. So that's the usual Flame browser. So the user interface to set resolution if I need to. And I can, of course, change the view. So your users can change the view of the media browser. You can have a multi-selection because I allow in my script multi-selection, and that will bring content. That's not, in fact, a media browser, right? It's really a browser which allows you to fill, in fact, variable. And from these variables, so we're going to be able to take the output of the variable and take this content, which is a multi-selection, and import them using Flame Import to the real destination, right? So have a play with that, because I'm sure you're going to be able to automate many workflows and have, like I said, a user interface compatible with the rest of the application. Since we have updated the dialogues and the look and feel in the 2023 release, this is great to have, even these custom capabilities following the same user interface convention.
It's great
Any
too because
question up to now?
it gives you access to like your bookmarks. Because in previous versions
Yes,
with like Qt or
absolutely.
PySite or
Yes,
whatever, we were able to do things
yes,
like define a path
absolutely.
or
That's
a
true.
default
That's true.
path, but now it's
Absolutely.
it
More
really brings that to bear.
integrated in the workflow we know and love, right? Okay, good. So for the next example of other capabilities, I have created a script with multiple capabilities. And again, if you are new to Python, that could be good to, in fact, copy paste these things so you can create and you can understand. So Fred will talk to you about the object. So, I mean, when you create an object in Flame, so this is what you can play with. So in this example, I'm going to create a simple import from a file on the file system, and I'm going to add that to my workspace, right? So it's easy and fun. So I can define a folder. So I'm just going to extend that if you guys want to. Yes, if you want to copy paste or the examples. So here I define from the Flame project, current workspace library create folder. So I'm creating a folder and name my folder, and that's the name of the object is import folder. And I'm going to import from this path on file system. Again, that could be the output of a file browser if I want to, like I've shown you. And we're going to import these clips to the import folder. So that's quite straightforward. Here I put some sleep in case I would show you multiple operation. I want to show you a pause in the application because that goes quite fast, as you will see right now. So here I have my folder. And of course, it's not expanded, but I can use the import folder expand attribute to open this folder, just like that. Thank you very much. So I can interact with the content from the Python script. I can also use this object to open it as a sequence. So I'm just going to show you what's going to happen, just like that. So I am opening as a sequence. And of course, I don't have my viewer up, but I can use the keyboard shortcut to do that, because this is something we've added some time ago, the ability to use keyboard shortcut in a Python script, which allows you to do some macro work, like I'm going to show you later in the presentation. So here I have my sequence, I have my viewer. I'm super happy about that. With some lines of code, I can do that. We've added the look effect support. So in previous release of Flame family product, you were able to add any type of nodes or timeline effects with this command, right? This one is create effect, but you also have the create node in your batch scene. So I'm going to create a look effect, and I'm going to move to the effect environment. So we're going to be able to play with it. So we are in the effect environment with a simple command that emulates a keyboard shortcut. Yes, it's a big window. So I'm going to turn off the saturation. So as you'll see here, the saturation is not set to 0. So that's good. So I can play with various parameters. Like I put it back. I'm going to here change multiple parameters here, just to show you, in fact, the flow. So I've put a sleep in between, but then it shows me Flame doing something while I can do something else. So you can automate these things. Imagine you have CDL files. You could be looking at these files, creating variables for the parameters, and then put them in the application on a shot basis, based probably on shot name or clip name or whatever timing of your sequence.
That's what I was just thinking about, was getting
Yes,
CDLs for each shot in a show.
absolutely.
And
So
you can
something
very
you
easily in
can,
Python
yes.
parse that
Absolutely,
out.
very, very
Great.
easily, as you can see here. I can load a setup from this path, so very easily you can go through. I put some example here, but what I like with these automation workflows is I can, in fact, create multiple steps in a script, which will load, in fact, multiple look, go to my default look, and go in previous next frame, just to show the interactivity. And I put a sleep again in between, just to show you that you can pause, in fact, just to have an easier way to review these things. So again, kind of a macro thing you can do with the Python API, and you don't need to know a lot about the programming of that thing. You can modify anything you want to do, and at the end, maybe you want to save the file. So let's say you receive more changes to CDL, whatever, well, you could load and save these from disk and pop the file browser like I've told you earlier. So this is the file browser for the look. And of course, this browser doesn't need to have multi-selection or resolution widget, so these are set to false. Small example that I'm sure you're going to be able to start with to create nice automation workflow in the product. Let's move to the timeline to show you how we can manipulate timeline. So instead of pressing the button, I'm going to use the Flame Execute shortcut timeline tab, which brings me to the timeline tab. First thing we've done, in fact, is the ability to add splices. So sometimes you have a discontinuous sequence, which is the result of another software grading or whatever. So you can add splices. Of course, I added the splices in between somewhere in the sequence. I can use, again, the execute shortcut next transition to move to the transition. So now I am at the transition. And very easily, you can play with the splices. In this context here, at this given time code, I can set the transition to be a dissolve. I can set the duration, and I can also play with the alignment, just like that, as you can see on the screen. I don't like the duration of my transition, but that's fine. I can either change the type or change the duration, just like that. So again, very simple automation thing you can do with Python. And let's add more splices with a pause in between just to show you the speed. So boom, 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 splices have been added. But of course, very often, if you are getting information from your customer, you might have multiple transition you want to add. So I can do that without a pause in this example. So that means it's going to go quite fast. So don't blink. Boom, everything has been spliced. And that's how you can do that with the Python API in Update 1. We can play with the look, so I can go back at the beginning of my sequence with, again, another shortcut here. I can move to the effect tag like I've done earlier. So we are there. So we can apply these multiple parameters. And this is where, in fact, I feel that the more greener user using Python might take advantage as the API as kind of a macro thing, because here we have a nice way to copy and paste and navigate to the next shot content you have. So sometime, yes, you could do a multi-selection. So here, what I'm doing is I'm going to copy the current effect. I'm going to navigate, and I'm going to just change the view from front view to result view. And I can use that multiple times to duplicate content just like that. So as you can see, I am copy pasting very easily. I put a pause, so that's why this is slow. So nothing prevents me to just, in fact, just use the command for copy effect, next transition, and changing the view. And as you can see, it's quite fast to do that from within. So very often you have a need for a special content you work with to add splices or add 5 splices, move 10 frames, add splices for an effect you want to do. Well, you can do it with the Python API with all these very simple execute shortcut. And of course, at the end, well, if you want, you can navigate at the beginning of the clip and press play, and then you can automate these things. If you have a screening with the customer, you could do that. So if you don't want them to interact with the software, you could do that. I've shown you the fact that you can load and save preset for look, but you can do it for any effect. So in this example, I create a new object that is a text effect. So I can apply a text effect. So I am in the text editor, and from disk, we don't have access to the parameter of the text effect, but you can load, in fact, a preset from disk, and that is, in fact, your application of content. And at the end of this thing, well, maybe you want to tell your customer that, well, this is what you can do with Update 1. Because you have the power. With power comes, the responsibility.
Great responsibility.
You need to be
yes.
great. So that is what we've done in update 1 for Python. One last thing I want to show you, and we had a call this year, the support team received a call from a customer asking, so I know you can interact with nodes in batch, you can create the write file node, but how can I play with the different settings of the write file nodes? And I think, well, I mean, it could be interesting today to quickly revisit what you can do with the different attribute of objects, right? So I'm going to just give you some references to how to either, well, we're going to create a batch. We're going to create a batch group. So a batch group has been created with the flame batch create batch group command with the name of my batch. So that's great. We can navigate to the batch environment because right now I am in timeline. So like I've shown you earlier, we can use the keyboard. We can use either the call to go directly to a tab. So I can go to the effect tab if I want, but then I can use any of these things. So as a reference, it's good for you to note that you can navigate to these tabs, but you can also use, like I said, the timeline shortcuts to do that. You can also pop, if you want, the keyboard shortcuts to show you all the commands. And it's quite easy, in fact, to create an entry in your Python script. So you just have to make sure that you use the same naming of the keyboard shortcuts, and you put it there between bracket, and then thank you very much between quote, not bracket, and this is what you can execute. So that's how you can do some automation of, like I've done earlier for the copy and paste, right? So quite simple for if you are new and afraid of the Python API, you can start with these to create macros. We're going to create a write file. So this is my batch scene, and I'm going to create a batch file at the default location. So I'm just going to, just change the size because we don't need to have. So Fred will tell you that when you create an object like WF, which is my object for the write file, the write file attributes come in. So the printing of the attribute of the object is your best friend, right? Because when you do so, you can see all the parameters that you have access to here for the write file, which is a quite complete node. We have the position, naming, the collapse nodes, and all the parameters available in the user interface are available for write file. So if I were to double click just to show the user interface, we can in fact play with the naming of the read file. So I can hold on. So I'm just going to resize my window. Yes, that's my object. That's good. I've printed the attribute, and this is how you would change the name. And Flame for now is not reactive, but that's fine. I can still show you what you can do with these. So the attributes are everything you can set within the read file. You can set the position in X and Y. So that means you would set the location of the node anywhere in the canvas. You can bring it back to the original location with this command, right? That's quite easy. So you can set the various file format, the compression mode, the level of compression in case of a DreamWorks compression inside the write file. You can set the range with all that. And if you want to set the metadata, which is always cool because, again, with the automation you can do in Python API, you could get the data from a given clip in your schematic, and then you could apply these to variables, and then you would be able to set them to the frame rate, shot name, tape name, blah, 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 and so on. Play with the attributes of different nodes because, like I say, not every nodes have all the capabilities. So 2D transform is quite basic. You would get mainly the position of the node. But if you were to work with the look or the HDR, these have, in fact, a lot of capabilities you can use in the product. And from there, you would be able to automate workflows and ensure that you don't have to do these repetitive tasks using simple Python command. So have a look at our website because we're going to give you a lot of information about the Python API, of course, but not only that. And I'm going to show you back my presentation. So all done.
I think it's worth, while you're flipping you're transitioning back to the presentation, Stephane, it's worth mentioning that you can assign a keyboard shortcut to every installed Python script.
Yes.
So once you have one of these things set up that you love and you're using it all the time at your go-to, you can assign it to a keyboard shortcut and make it that much quicker to use.
Absolutely. So that means you can use, in fact, many shortcuts. You can use these shortcuts to create a kind of a macro and assign this script, in fact, to a keyboard shortcut again. So that means you can have multiple shortcuts of macro being part of a super macro. So just that, you don't need to know a lot about the API to be able to do that. And with the example we have on our website, you're going to easily be able to create these automation. Again, meaning if you don't have to do these manual things, you're going to be more efficient in your workflows. You want to know
I
what's
also
new?
liked actually how you started off in the Python portion of your presentation here, kind of doing your best impression or of Fred, taking you through how Python works. You ended though doing your best impression of me writing Python scripts, where all of a sudden, no matter what you do, it's not working, and you
Something will happen.
question all of your
Yes.
choices in life. Yes, absolutely.
Technology sometimes, but there's always a human behind technology that
That's
can
right.
make, either great things or mistakes or a mixture of both, right?
That's what we
So you
call
want,
art.
yeah, go ahead. So you want to know more about 2023 Update 1, so the What's New page with the link on the screen will give you all the secrets about the update. Like you said earlier, Andy Grant created multiple videos on Flame Learning channel about the new capabilities, so project management, caching, test disk, and so on. So there are many. You want to interact with us and ask us news capabilities, so do like our friend Brian does and go on Flame General Improvement. We want to know about your request. Many conversations start on Logik forum. So please, when you create, yes. So please, when you have this conversation, make sure they translate into our general improvement, which we can put in our database, and we can. And the great thing is, if you could link to the forum link conversation, that would be good. So then we can have the context about these things. So that would be super neat to be able to reference these. Fred posted, in fact, is a famous post about the requests implemented in Update 1 from you guys. So again, continue posting your requests on the Flame feedback, because from there we can better understand your workflow, which evolve every week, right? And we cannot, depending on your region, we cannot always be aware of what you need in the product. So please stay close to us and give us information. Very soon in August 3rd and August 4th, we're going to have 2 days of Autodesk Vision Series, great online presentation about a lot of technologies at Autodesk. So you'll see game engine, game 3D modeling, and all these things be presented on August 3 from other products at Autodesk. But you want to be there on August 4 because our beloved friend Rufus will talk to us about the work he has done for the Camilla Cabello music video spot, which was very insane. So have a look. He's going to talk to us about all the magic he has done. So follow the links and register for free for these online events because these are a great presentation, and there will be also a Q&A at the end if I'm not mistaken. So that's about it for Update 1. So I hope you guys are going to be able to install Update 1, have a play with it, and get back to us so we can get feedback and, of course, continue the conversation with you about what we can add to the product.
Amen. Thank you so much, Stephane. I got to put up a comment here from BJ who's saying he loves these new feature live talk, much more informative than just reading the release notes.
No, I agree with you. It's good to have
That's
context
great.
about the feature. The documentation is good, but having a context sometimes, tells you the thing that you cannot get from the documentation. So yes, I can do that kind of thing. I can derive this feature. And as we know, a lot of people hack their way in Flame to create workflows, right? Very often somebody will take the output of a node to do something else. So having these conversation and question live, this is interesting.
It's wonderful. Well, if anybody has any other questions, please put them in the chat. I want to see. David is just saying thank you to Stephane and Andy. Stephane, I want to thank you. I think not only was this informative and entertaining, I would say you are the best thing to happen to QR codes since the pandemic itself. So
absolutely. So it's a
wonderful
positive spin on the QR code.
Absolutely. Let's see. And here you go. Here's this thank you from Valentine in his native tongue. This is really wonderful, man. Thank you for coming on today and sharing.
My pleasure. Have fun with Update 1, and we're going to be able to play later in the year with other releases, updates, and technology we are adding to the product.
Absolutely. And I want to just echo what Stephane said about Flame feedback. If you do have a feature that you'd love to see implemented, please, please, please enter it in Flame Feedback. Put the link on the Logic forum. Wait, I'll do it myself. And we'll make sure to boost it, So
Please,
that's the best way.
yeah, absolutely. And there's also the conversation around the capabilities you want to be seen added to the product, right? This is interesting to be telling us I want a button for this and that's is not great, because I mean we need to understand the needs. We need to see how we can link the different things we have in mind for the future version of the project. So we can in fact understand sometimes very narrow workflow which could be expanded into something else, right? Take connected conform, which is a good example. So it could have been a super swap shot, but at the end of the day we were able to do way better than a super swap shot, and the connectivity between these things. So again, more understanding we have about your workflows and issues and challenges, and better we can come up with technologies who can please multiple user and workflows.
Absolutely. All right, well, Stephane, I'm going to thank you again. Why don't you head over to the Patrons Q&A. I'm going to wrap up here, and we'll meet you over there in a couple of minutes. But thank you, as always, for making the time. And
thank you, guys and gal, and see you
it.
somewhere on the internet.
Bye-bye. You know it. That's where you always find us. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we've got 3 prizes to give away today. It's hot just about everywhere, except, of course, where John Ag is down in Australia. So I am going to give away a Logic water bottle here to one of our lucky residents. Let's shuffle these names and spin the wheel. There we go. This could land anywhere. It's going to go to Gennady. Congratulations, man. You have got yourself a Logic water bottle. And then to protect yourself and that beautiful head of yours from the sun, let's give away a Logic baseball hat to Carlos. Congratulations, Carlos. And finally, if you decide to spend your whole day indoors like I do to avoid the hot weather, you might make some use out of a 1-year license of optics from our friends at Horrocks Effects. So let's shuffle this up and spin the wheel one more time. Let the music start over by itself, and that's going to Valentine. Congratulations, Valentine. And of course, thank you to our friends at Horrocks Effects. All right, let's bring this home, my friends. Coming up on Logic Live next week. Oh, I guess I know. Oh, yes. No, that is right. Sorry. Next week, Sunday, July 31st at 2 p.m., we're going to have Bernd Hildebrand on, the winner of Renderdome 3, and that is going to be hosted by Jeff Kyle. Very much looking forward to that. Sunday, August 7th, I'm going to have an accountant on, David Kameny. He's an accountant for this, for the post-production business that services people like us and understands what we do for a living. He's going to be on for an Ask Me Anything. If you had any questions at all about how to run your flame business at home, be sure to tune in on August 7th. We're going to be off on the 14th, but Sunday, August 21st, Amanda is going to host Women in Flame on Logic Live. And then we're going to close out the Summer Flame 2022 on Sunday, September 4th with Jasmine Frenet from Autodesk. He's one of the developers on the Autodesk Flame team, and so he'll be there to give the developer's perspective and, of course, answer any of your questions. If you haven't already signed up for the forum, please do at forum.logic.tv. And while you're there, hit the button for the Logic TV Discord and join the live chat. This episode of Logic Live will be available on the website soon, later today. If you haven't checked it out already, please listen to my amazing interview with Brian Bailey on the Logic podcast. You can get that on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and anywhere that podcasts are served. We are actually, if Randy were here, we're almost at 1,500 subscribers. I think we were 1,498 last night. So if you know anybody, if you have 2 or 3 friends, or if they have friends, please have them, as the kids say, like and smash the subscribe button so that we can get that number up over the 1,500 threshold. Reminder to everybody who can make it, the Detroit Flame User Group, the inaugural Detroit Flame User Group meeting is going to be on Thursday, August 18th. If you'd like to support what we're doing at Logic, please become a patron by signing up at patreon.com/LogicTV. Be sure to check out the Logic merch store. You can get that at the website, logic.tv, and outfit yourself with the latest. If you need tech support, call Jack Horrocks at jack@flametech.com Thank you to Boris Effects for sponsoring Logic Live. And if you'd like to save 15% on everything that they make, use the Logic-15 discount code at checkout. And thank you to AJA for sponsoring Logic Live. I think I need to put Hot Spring in at the end, so I will absolutely do that for next time, I promise. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Stephane. We'll see y'all over on the patrons chat. Have a wonderful week, everyone. Make sure you tune in next Sunday for Jeff Kyle right here on Logic Live. See you next time, guys.